All right, welcome back to our channel. My name is Chris Sachinelli. I build, buy, and sell simple, profitable businesses every single day. Startup Exchange is one of those businesses. And today we want to talk to you about why, as an employer, you should be going out and finding and hiring investopreneurs to be able to win your war on talent, right? So what is investopreneurship, first off? Investopreneurship is a less risky approach to being an entrepreneur. It's what we promote, right, at Bootstrapper Capital. It's what we try to provide in terms of a path forward to support the journey of bootstrapping entrepreneurs to approach being an entrepreneur with less risk, right? It's a less risky way to build a business. What is it, right? So the concept comes around, taking the best of both worlds, taking the discipline and risk aversion of an investor and the passion and grit of an entrepreneur, combining the two and going and building a profitable business. Now, how we do it is called the Investpreneur's Journey. We promote for folks to go out, go get a job, right? Get somebody to pay you to get experience, take all of that experience and some of that pay and go build a business or an asset on the side. Get your asset to match your income and now go and level up, right? It's the Investpreneur's Journey. It's what we promote all the time. It's a less risky path towards entrepreneurship, right? And ultimately, at the end of it, you're not putting your family at risk, taking unnecessary financial risk, right? Life is a real thing. We all have responsibilities. We have, rent or mortgages or car payments, maybe kiddos, again, we're all human beings. Life is a real thing. So it's just a way to be able to approach being a bootstrapping entrepreneur without taking, too many unnecessary risks in the process. Now, as an investorpreneur, it makes a ton of sense. And oftentimes we are talking and communicating through the lens of our investorpreneurs, of entrepreneurs looking to go and build businesses. What we oftentimes forget to look at is the other side of the table. And what we want to do in this video is talk through the other side of the table, the employers, the folks that are actually hiring investopreneurs, and why it makes sense to go to the market and find and hire investopreneurs today. In order to do this, what I want to do is actually go ahead and share my screen and talk through it a little bit, right? I have the privilege of getting to talk to very successful entrepreneurs every single day, folks that have built 7-figure, 8-figure, 9-figure, even 10-figure businesses and are actively finding and hiring and trying to win this war on talent. And oftentimes we'll ask, if you have a magic wand and you could wave it, one thing that you could look for help for, what would it be? And oftentimes, more often than not, actually, the answer becomes people, right? Do you have talent? Do you have people that can come and join our mission, join our company and help us grow and achieve our goals, right? So what I want to do is share my screen and go through why this concept of investopreneurship really is founder friendly and also employer friendly, right? More often than not, the common thought process is, I don't want to go out and hire an entrepreneur, right? Because when I hire an entrepreneur, what I'm getting is somebody who's not fully committed to my business, and there's a lot of risk associated with that. What I want to do on today's video is talk you through why that's not the case and hopefully get you to see, if you change your perspective, you can change your approach and hopefully get to see why it makes a ton of sense in today's changing environment and climate to go out and start hiring investopreneurs and why investopreneurs are amazing, phenomenal individuals to be able to add to your team. So first off, I want to talk through this shift in the way we work. Right? We just went through a historic time over the past several years, right? With COVID taking place, work from home being a thing, shift in terms of our perspectives and priorities, right? We have this opportunity to spend time, with our family, and we realize we don't have to go and travel 2 hours in a car both ways every day to be able to go to a 9-to-5, right? We see this flexibility. You have things like DAOs coming up, decentralized autonomous organizations that, you can go and work for fractionally. You have the shared economy, right? There's so many things taking place that are creating so many different freedoms for folks to have options, right? And oftentimes when folks have options to choose and the freedom to decide, they're going to optimize for this thing called life, right? So what we found is over the past several years, this massive shift towards, everyone pretty much having side hustles or if you don't have a side hustle, you have these other priorities that you realize I can now bring into my life and have a more balanced and fulfilling life overall. So folks' perspectives has shifted, right? And again, if you change your perspective, you change your approach. So folks' approach towards the workforce and employment has also changed. And those observations are now extremely abundantly clear, not just anecdotally, but also through the data, right, that is coming out, being reported on to be able to support this. Now, what I want to do is take a second to actually think through some of these other changes, right? So this is the past several years. What I want to start to do is get a little bit proactive, right, as successful investpreneurs, which successful investpreneurs are also employers, right? Because we have successful companies and we're hiring folks. I want to think through the next several years and what types of changes we're going to be seeing and the shifts that we're going to be able to see and what types of trends may come from these. And by understanding and appreciating this cause effect while want to be able to understand if we could get aligned into it and then change our perspective to change our approach and hopefully have a better outcome over the next couple of years because, you know, we take a few minutes to be able to talk this through. So when we're thinking about the next couple of years, what are we seeing, right? And what other contributing factors are there as to why folks, why, like the big why, right? Lead with the why folks not only want, but potentially need multiple streams of income. Right. And again, a big reason why folks don't want to hire bootstrapping entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs in general is because, you know, when folks have multiple streams of income, their attention's in multiple places and all these things. What I want to talk through is why, you know, A, that's going to likely become a need, right? More of a want than a, you know, more of a need than a want. And then B, why embracing it, and especially embracing it fast and proactively, we could become, position ourselves to have that be a competitive advantage for ourselves and our businesses over the next couple of years. So first off is that shift in terms of the change that we've seen for the past couple of years and playing that forward into the next couple of years, right? Everyone now wants to go back to work, right? We're all going back to the office. So we've all had this taste of freedom, right? Taste of work from home, taste of the freedom that comes with it, all these things. And now our employers are pulling us back to the office. What that pushes us to do as individuals and humans and employees is, you know, we want to get back into chasing the dream. We want to get back to what we already had, right? So we're trying to problem solve as individuals on how to get there. And employers that are willing to align into that are going to have a better and more competitive time in terms of winning talent, getting alignment into talent, and ultimately having better, successful, healthier relationships with employees because of it, right? So don't face it, don't fight it, let's align with it, right? Go with the current, not against it. Another thing that's taking place right now and is in the face of all of our employees, it's not just, oh, I want to go back to this, or I want to have this more balanced lifestyle. Now we have this other thing in our face of, you know, shifts in the economy, right? So we hear it every day now, the fear mongering in a sense, like the headlines around the recession and the economic downturn and all these negative things, right? We've had such an unprecedented period of time where so much capital is being pumped into the markets. Inflation is a real thing at this point. A couple of things are now coming about because of it. And we have to kind of accept it, acknowledge it, and then play into it. The first is lack of security, right? Employees are looking at their jobs and they're asking themselves, am I going to have this job forever, right? Is the shift in the economy, is the shift in the economic downturn, is any of these things that I may or may not understand, right? Because again, fear is oftentimes like a lack of certainty, right? Fear of the unknown. Is any of these things going to have a negative impact on me? And if it does that mean that it's going to cost me my job, right? This isn't our first rodeo. Most of us have now gone through like so many, more than probably any other generation, crazy economic scenarios, right? A lot of us are children of the Great Recession, right? So we have these fears. We have the hippocampus moments already in the back of our mind, right? So we're starting to kind of poise ourselves. And a lot of the kids that were children of the Great Recession kind of have that ingrained in the back of our head. And that lack of security, a lack of certainty is a really powerful thing. And what that leads to is this fight or flight type of mentality. And oftentimes what it's going to look for is folks looking for other things that can shore up that security. And what that means more often than not now, especially in this time of fractional work and fractional employment, and everybody has side hustles and all these things, is multiple streams of income, right? Is being able to go and say that I have something that I own that I can feel secure and safe with, right? So folks are actively interested in this. And if we can get behind them and support them, then we can take this thing that could be a disadvantage and we could turn it into an advantage. And again, that's a part of what we're trying to talk through in terms of the why, and then the how we can actually execute that. The other thing I was talking about was rise in prices, inflation, right? That's another real thing going on. We're all going to the gas pumps, we're going to the grocery stores, we're seeing the cost of the goods and services that we need increasing. And what we're not seeing is a rise in salary that's comparable. So what do we do as human beings? Again, fight or flight type of thing. We go and we try to adapt, evolve, and make do. And more often than not, again, that becomes this pressure, right, or driver or catalyst to go out and secure multiple streams of income. So what I'm trying to say is this isn't just a human emotional behavioral type of thing, right? So we've been exposed to it over the past few years as this kind of like ideal balanced life, but it's not just this emotional, oh, that's what I want. What we need to acknowledge is the fact that things are shifting, the markets are shifting, reality is shifting as well. So you have something that folks want, but now you're also having that want become a need. And what we're seeing is the fact that we need to acknowledge and realize this may be a real thing. And we may have to go about approaching it, embracing it. And now what I want to talk through is why it would be in our best interest to do so, right? So how do we embrace this as employers? Again, conventional thinking, again, what you need to do is change your perspective, because if you can change your perspective, then you can change your approach. And if you can change your approach to better align with your desired outcome, the better and the higher the likelihood that you're going to get there or achieve it, right? So I just want to shift our perspective so that we can then shift our approach and then, put out a potential, approach that we can shift into. Traditional thinking as employers, right? If I hire an entrepreneur or an investpreneur or a bootstrapper or somebody building a business on the side, then they're not focused. They're not focused on my thing, the thing that I'm hiring them for. They're focused on their thing. And if they're focused on their thing, then my thing's not going to get the care, attention that it deserves. And I'm going to be paying higher wages than the rewards that I'm going to be receiving, the value that I'm paying for. All of these, that thought comes into our mind. Right? This person's, working on a business. So what happens when that business takes off and they no longer want to be my employee? Now I have a flight risk. Am I just hiring somebody to be an employee or a spot filler for 6 months, 3 months, 12 months, right? Traditional thinking here. If this person's a flight risk, or what happens if around the water cooler, they're sharing with the other employees what they're doing and their passions and how much they care about this thing. And then all of it, it breeds the seed of discontent. And now all of a sudden, all of my employees are now leaving and flight risks, and they all want to have the, right? Is this bad for my culture? Is this a slippery slope there? Right? What about all that investment I'm making in this individual to attract them and hire them? I just spent $7,500 on average to be able to acquire this person and hire them and recruit them into my company. And now another 3 months to be able to train them up of, them not really operating at peak performance. And I have to assume all that cost inside of my business to then only have them leave. This is a very expensive proposition to have somebody turn over. So I lose all that investment, and then what happens if that happens across the board, right? And between the cultural effect and all of this potential turnover, it's really just detracting from our vision and our mission and our purpose and our goals as a company. And that traditional sentiment, that talk track is a very real talk track, right? Again, we get to have conversations every single day with very successful entrepreneurs running very successful businesses. And oftentimes this is the traditional thought process towards employees, from an employer to employee type of perspective. And I get it, right? I've also been in the position to have to employ and be responsible for a large workforce of individuals. However, if you shift your perspective, you can shift your approach. And what I want to do is just talk through what it may look like to potentially get aligned with an individual by accepting the realities that our thought process from the 50s is different from 2020s, right? Our thought process from the 80s is different than the 50s, is different from the 2020s, the 90s, the 2000s, right? A shift in time, a shift in environment, a shift in ecosystem, a shift in overall social norms and culture, you have to shift your strategies as well, right? And regardless of whether or not we want to accept it, those shifts that we were talking about earlier have taken place. Not only have they taken place, we also are in a position where the likelihood of, again, these wants becoming needs is pretty high. There's a likelihood that inflation is going to continue to take place. There's a likelihood that there's going to be an economic downturn that drives fear, right? Because of recession and things of that nature, lack of security, et cetera. So there's a reality that most folks are going to be attracted towards this concept of multiple streams of income, towards, working multiple jobs, towards being involved with a number of different things. We've embraced this as a culture that you can do multiple Zooms, you can run things remotely, you could be a part of different types of groups and communities with all of these NFTs and decentralized autonomous organizations, DAOs, that are popping up, right? Like this is like a real thing now, right? Like you could go drive Uber, you could go work in an office, there's so much opportunity in terms of flexibility for remote work that it's a reality, right? For most folks. So what I propose is get ahead of it, right? Get ahead of it by attracting folks that you can get aligned with. And when you're attracting an investorpreneur or an entrepreneur, who you're really targeting is somebody, that is passionate enough and savvy enough to go out and want to build a company in the first place, right? So there's a certain criteria that goes into that type of individual. And more often than not, they're very highly skilled and very highly capable. So you're attracting really top talent, right? And you're attracting top talent that may have otherwise been off market, right? Because if this individual is just trapped, highly capable individual who's underemployed because they truly do want to build a business and, that business isn't off the ground or whatever the case may be. And they're so passionate about it that they're willing to not get a job, full time in order to sacrifice to be able to build this, which is what we're trying to change the approach of. That person's hyper underemployed right now. They are worth way more in the market than what they're getting compensated or what they're compensating themselves. So as an employer, this is a strategy where you can go out and attract and poach talent that other folks aren't really going after. And this is top talent. This is world-class talent. So now you have a way of actually competing and attracting these highly skilled individuals. When you're attracting these highly skilled individuals, what you're doing is you're aligning into their personal whys, a personal why that is way more than just a paycheck, right? Money is a short-term motivator. If you want to really capture somebody, really get them to care about, you and what you're doing, align with their why, right? What matters to them. And for an investorpreneur, an entrepreneur that you would bring on, that's very clear, right? They have this thing that they're passionate about, and they just want to have the freedom to go out and pursue it. So if you could capture them and align them and say, hey, listen, I understand that this is going on, right? We're okay with this. We just need some parameters. We need some framework. And we want to create the freedom for you to be able to go out and pursue your passion and your dreams and do so in a less risky way. We want to give you some confidence. We want to give you some security. We want to put you in a position where we appreciate you and still allow you to go out and do this. That individual is going to be so appreciative of that opportunity that you're giving them. That level of appreciation is going to be so hyper aligned with the culture you're trying to build and the job function that you're trying to capture that highly skilled individual to deliver for your organization. That is a highly motivated and aligned employee. Why? Because A, they're appreciative of the opportunity, and B, they really need that paycheck, right? They're looking for that security. So if they're being given what they need with the freedom to pursue what they want, that's an ideal situation. And because that's an ideal situation, they don't want to lose that. So that's not a flight risk. That's not somebody that's bad for culture, right? That's not going to be a turnover that's going to cost you money. That's going to be somebody who's hyper dedicated, hyper aligned, and a massive champion in the marketplace for you and your organization. Because again, they're super appreciative of the opportunity that you're giving them and the way in which you're giving it. On top of all that, there's also opportunity for you as an employer, who many of you are entrepreneurs yourselves. There is an opportunity to do a level of seed investment, right? And trade and barter and bargain opportunity for equity, right? We talk all the time as bootstrapping entrepreneurs. We may not have investors, or we may not think we have investors, but the reality is we do. And they're called customers, right? So as bootstrappers, we talk about our customers being our investors. Maybe we're not going and raising VC, venture capital, but we are raising money and we have investors, customers. In this concept of investopreneurship, the employer is also an investor, right? It's somebody who's giving you security and confidence and a paycheck with the freedom to be able to go out and have the flexibility to build something on the side in favorable terms and alignment. And in that situation, it is highly suggested that that becomes a potential equity conversation. If you can give equity to that employer in the upside, there is no downside, right? You have now this employer, you as an employer, you're capturing a highly capable, a highly talented, a highly skilled, otherwise undervalued and undercompensated individual. You're putting them into a role where they're going to crush it. And then you're giving them the freedom to go out and pursue something, right? You have somebody that's super appreciative, super aligned, doing a great job. You have the freedom for them to go out and pursue what they need to on the side. And then if you could get a percentage of that equity, of that thing on the side, now you're all mutually aligned for the upside. If that person leaves, the only reason why that person would leave is because, again, that asset did match the income, exceeded it, and there's no other promotion that they could get. Right? That's a business, and that's equity that you want to be aligned in for the upside. That's a tremendous value proposition, right? There's a great deal to be done there. We say all the time, there's always a deal to be done. That would be a great deal to get done. And again, for the investorpreneur, it's the same as like a seed investment. You have somebody who's giving you security, benefits, a place to hang your hat, a culture and a team to be involved with, because again, it's lonely oftentimes bootstrapping a business or building a business, right? So all of these components and all of this is a great trade and exchange to be able to take place. And because of that, there's the opportunity for like a very, very, very positive system of reciprocity. In one situation, the company doesn't work out and that investorpreneur never leaves because the business, it never scaled. But what you found was somebody who's hyper leaned in, hyper appreciative, truly aligned with the company, the culture, and what you provided them. And that's probably going to be somebody who not only is a massive champion for you, but is absolutely crushing it in their day-to-day. Somebody's going to want to be there for a very long period of time and tell other people, right? So you're going to have a system of reciprocity in terms of that. That's a true cultural champion for you internally. On the opposite side of that, things did work out and they grew and they scaled. And it was a very successful venture that they were able to build on the side, right? More often than not, we see the former rather than the latter, but sometimes the latter happens. And in that situation, you got a percentage of the upside, system for reciprocity, and then B, somebody who's very successful in their own right, and an ally in this thing called capitalism that we're all playing the game in every single day. And somebody who's a successful individual inside of life is definitely somebody that I would want in my network. And not only somebody that I would want in my network, but somebody that I wish I would have been able to have the opportunity to help, because you truly do get more by giving than by taking. So for all of those reasons, that's why I feel like we need to be shifting our perspective and we need to change our approach. And we need, as employers, right? As employers, we need to be able to be willing and open to have conversations around finding, attracting, retaining, and landing investorpreneurs inside of our business systems, so that we can create this opportunity for a very healthy system of reciprocity to be able to take place. Because again, it takes two sides of the table. Now, the other thing is, just to put it out there, if you're willing to, as an employer, embrace that fact, right? And just for a second, you take a step back and say, wow, Chris, everything that you said today makes a ton of sense. Not only does it make sense in terms of a good deal and a good overall situation, but yeah, what you're saying in terms of the economy and the ecosystem and the environment that we're living in, these are kind of facts of the reality that we need to just accept and embrace, right? If you just sit back and just start there and say, this is what it is, no matter what, you have two options. Either you can get proactive and go out and start embracing this proactively and position and structure deals with the right people, right? Competitively speaking, that really truly does set up a win-win-win type of situation when you get what you need for your company, attract and retain the right talent. When things don't work out for their business and you have a great employee for the long term, when things do work out and you get opportunity in the upside and somebody who's successful. Win-win-win type of deal structure. You can either do that proactively, or you could say, no, I'm not going to change my perspective. And, you know, I want to hire folks that are just focused on my thing 9 to 5. And then all of these things end up playing out in the economy. Inflation ends up going up, right? Fear, lack of certainty ends up coming in. And folks, no matter what, intrinsically are going to be looking elsewhere. What you'll find yourself in is folks going out and not telling you openly what's going on, and them doing consulting on the side or advisory work, or going and getting involved with XYZ startup or whatever the case may be, or building their own thing in stealth mode, right? So the reality is no matter what, there's a cause and effect, and either you can accept it or not. And you can either get in front of it proactively and leverage it and take this opportunity, right? This thing that could otherwise be risk, and reassociate the risk and realign the risk into an opportunity and potentially create opportunity for others. And you get more by giving than by taking, or not, and potentially have to, you know, become a victim to or suffer from the effects of. All right, so that's it. And hopefully this shifts your perspective a little bit. And hopefully because of this video, more awesome investorpreneurs who truly do want to follow that journey and really hang their hat somewhere and be a part of a team in a meaningful way. They just want to have that flexibility on the side to be able to pursue their own passions and visions and be able to triumph within that. Need a little bit of help and support. You know, hopefully more folks can find that, you know, because we're able to have this conversation today. Appreciate you for watching this. Till next time.